Imagine camping in the freezing mountains at night. Everything seems normal, till suddenly something terrifies you so much that you cut open your tent and run out into the snow, without shoes, into temperatures colder than -25 degrees Celsius. That's exactly what happened to 9 hikers in 1959, in a place now known as Dyatlov Pass, and to this day, no one knows exactly why. This is the story of one of the most enduring and chilling mysteries of the 20th century. A tale of experienced hikers, a remote mountain, and a series of events so bizarre they defy easy explanation. What really happened on that fateful night in the Ural Mountains? Let's dive in. Our story begins in January 1959. A group of 9 experienced hikers, mostly students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, set out on a challenging expedition. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student and a seasoned outdoorsman. Their goal was ambitious, to trek across the northern Ural Mountains and reach a remote peak known as Otorten. To get there, they had to pass a mountain called Kholat Syakhl, which, in the language of the local Mansi people, translates to Dead Mountain. A chilling bit of foreshadowing. Perhaps the team was well equipped, physically fit, and knew what they were doing. They documented their journey with diaries and photographs, capturing moments of laughter, camaraderie, and the stark beauty of the winter landscape. The early photos show a group of happy, confident young people completely unaware of the horror that awaited them. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. They were supposed to send a telegram to their sports club around February 12th to signal the successful end of their journey. But that telegram never came. Days turned into weeks, and silence from the group turned into serious concern. Finally, on February 20th, a full-scale search and rescue operation was launched. Volunteer students and teachers, followed by military planes and helicopters, scoured the vast, unforgiving wilderness. 6 days later, the search party made their first discovery. They found the group's tent on the slope of Kholat Syakhl. It was heavily damaged and half buried in snow, but what they saw inside was deeply disturbing. The tent had been sliced open from the inside. This wasn't the work of an animal trying to get in. This was a desperate act by people trying to get out. All of the group's belongings, their shoes, warm clothing, backpacks, and food were left behind, neatly arranged. It was as if they had fled in a state of extreme panic, abandoning everything they needed to survive in the brutal cold. Outside the tent, a trail of footprints led down the slope. Some were from socks, some were from a single shoe, and some were completely barefoot. Barefoot, in snow, with temperatures that night plunging to around -30 degrees Celsius. Why would 9 experienced hikers do this? What could have scared them so badly? The searchers followed the tracks. About a mile down the slope, near the edge of a forest, they found the first 2 bodies, Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko. They were discovered under a large cedar tree, next to the remnants of a small, hastily built fire. Both were dressed only in their underwear. Their hands were torn and bruised, and branches on the cedar tree up to 5 meters high were broken, suggesting someone had tried to climb it, perhaps to get a better view or to escape from something on the ground. A little further up the slope, between the cedar tree and the camp, 3 more bodies were found, including that of Igor Dyatlov. They were found at different distances from each other, in poses that suggested they were trying to make their way back up to the tent. They were more warmly dressed than the first 2, but still inadequately for the conditions. The cause of death for these first 5 hikers was officially ruled as hypothermia. It was a tragic end, but at this point, it seemed like a plausible, albeit strange, accident. Maybe they panicked and got lost in the dark. But the discoveries that came next would change everything. It took more than 2 months for the remaining 4 hikers to be found. In May, as the snow began to melt, their bodies were discovered in a ravine buried under 4 meters of snow, about 75 meters away from the cedar tree, and their injuries were horrific. Nikolai Thibobruniolis had suffered a severe skull fracture. Lyudmila Dubanina and Simeon Zolotaryev had massive chest fractures, the kind of injuries you'd expect from a high-speed car crash. Yet, strangely, their bodies showed no external signs of trauma. No cuts, no bruises on the skin. It was as if they had been crushed by an immense, invisible force. And perhaps the most gruesome detail of all, Lyudmila Dubanina was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lip tissue. The medical examiner concluded that these three could not have sustained such injuries from a simple fall. He stated the force required would have been tremendous. The investigation was stumped. There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence of other people being in the area. What could have caused these devastating internal injuries while leaving the skin intact? And why were they all so far from their tent without proper gear? The questions piled up, and the official investigation was abruptly closed in May 1959. The final report simply stated that the hikers had died as a result of a compelling unknown force. That vague and unsatisfying conclusion only fueled decades of speculation. So what are the theories? Over the years, countless explanations have been proposed, ranging from the rational to the outright bizarre. The most widely accepted scientific theory, the one put forth by Russian investigators who reopened the case in 2019, is an avalanche. Specifically, a small, delayed slab avalanche. The theory goes that a slab of snow slid down onto the tent, not enough to bury it completely, but enough to cause panic and minor injuries, forcing the group to cut their way out and flee downhill. Once they were out, they couldn't find their tent in the darkness and blizzard conditions, and eventually succumbed to the elements. The severe injuries of the last four could have been caused by being crushed under the weight of the snow in the ravine where they were found. But this theory has problems. Experienced hikers like Dyatlov would have known not to camp in an avalanche-prone area. The slope wasn't that steep. Searchers who arrived on the scene found no evidence of a recent avalanche. And it doesn't explain why they ran so far from the tent, or why some tried to climb a tree. Another popular theory involves secret military weapons testing. The area was known for military activity. Could the hikers have accidentally stumbled upon a secret test? This could explain the panic and the strange injuries. Some reports from other hikers in the region around that time mentioned seeing strange orange spheres or lights in the sky. Some of the hikers' clothing was also found to be slightly radioactive. However, the levels of radiation were low and could be explained by natural sources. And there's no declassified government record to support a military cover-up. Then we enter the realm of the truly strange. One theory is infrasound. This is sound at a frequency so low humans can't hear it, but it can have powerful physical and psychological effects, including intense panic, dread, and a feeling of being watched. Could a natural phenomenon, like a specific wind pattern interacting with the mountain's topography, have created a powerful infrasound wave that drove the hikers mad? It's a fascinating idea, but it's hard to prove and doesn't fully account for the brutal physical injuries. And of course, we can't talk about Dyatlov Pass without mentioning the more fringe theories. Some believe the local Mansi people, angered by the hikers trespassing on their sacred lands, attacked them. But the Mansi are a peaceful people, and the investigation found no evidence to support this. There were no footprints other than the hikers. Then there are the theories of an animal attack, like a bear or a wolverine, but again, no animal tracks were found, and the nature of the injuries doesn't quite fit. Finally, the most sensational theory of all, an encounter with something not of this world. Aliens or a Russian Yeti-like creature. These theories capture the imagination, but lack any concrete evidence. In 2020, the Russian Prosecutor General's office concluded their new investigation. Doubling down on the avalanche theory, they even ran simulations to show how a slab avalanche could have occurred. For them, the case is closed. But for many researchers, family members of the victims, and amateur sleuths around the world, this explanation is far from satisfying. Too many pieces of the puzzle just don't fit. Why were some of the last bodies found more warmly dressed than others? Why was the tongue missing? Why the reports of strange lights? The avalanche theory feels too simple for a case this complex and strange. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains an open wound in Russian history and a top-tier mystery for the world. 9 young lives were cut short in the most terrifying and inexplicable way. The photos and diary entries they left behind give us a glimpse into their final days, but the final crucial chapter of their story was never written. They are the only ones who know the truth of what happened that night on Dead Mountain, and they took that secret to their graves. The mystery endures because every theory has a flaw. Every explanation leaves a question unanswered. It's a perfect storm of bizarre evidence, official secrecy, and the chilling primal fear of the unknown in the wilderness. It forces us to ask what we would do in that situation, and to confront the terrifying possibility that some forces in nature are beyond our comprehension. So, What do you think happened at Dyatlov Pass? Is it a natural event, a military secret, or something else entirely? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries like this one, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the unknown. Stay curious, and see you next time.